One vice, I think. Well, we got the sniffing blue ordinance coming out of jail. Kill him.
I actually have some arrows on the notes.
Are you ready?
And I said, oh, you should use colored paper and just glue it down.
Okay.
You can use Elmer's glue.
I'm going to call to order the regular meeting on Tuesday, May 7th, 2000. Thank you very much. 2013 of the La Quinta City Council. We have roll call, please.
Council members Evans.
Present.
Henderson.
Present.
Osborne.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
Here.
Mayor Adolph. Absent.
And with that, I'll make a motion to excuse Mayor Adolph.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes. At this time, we have public comment. Any members of the public may address the City Council on any matter not listed on the agenda. Please complete a request to speak form and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Patrick Swarthout. There are lights up there on the top when the green one's on, and then when it gets to the
I'm going to do my best
red.
to try and stay within those lights, but I have a real critical issue that I'd like to come before you on. Madam Mayor Pro Tem and council members, my name is Patrick Swarthout. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for the Imperial Irrigation District, and I'm here to brief you on what we have as an epidemic in this, in our county and actually in the United States. It's called copper theft and a lot of different metal thefts. As you may or may not know, copper has gone from 70 cents a pound to over $3 a pound in the last several years. The metal that's we've seen increased in price and has also been increased in theft is aluminum, brass, and platinum. The increase in copper has increased our theft on our products, on our facilities. It's been one of those situations that when you think of it, it's ridiculous for what they're stealing and what they're getting and what it's costing us. In 2012, the IID spent over $1 million replacing copper theft and copper theft alone. It's pretty much a victimless crime. It really affects every single one of your constituents and our customers. And it's not a good thing at all. It's dangerous to our staff when we go out there, our troubleshooters, when there's an outage. We don't know if somebody ran into a pole or if somebody stole copper or if what the problem is. When they arrive and they see that there's nothing really wrong other than, you know, there's an outage, they have to go in and assess that, and that puts them in danger because the copper is a ground for all of the facilities that we have, and that ground protects them, protects you, protects anybody. But when they go in there, they're putting themselves in danger trying to figure out how they can fix that thing and not get hurt. In certain instances, these guys will go along and every other pole, they'll just take an axe and they'll hit the copper wire and they'll yank it off the pole and go to the next one and yank it off the pole. They'll get into the underground vaults, and they'll get in there and they'll throw a bunch of rubber tires down in there, and they'll get in there and they'll start just tripping the equipment and start grabbing as much wire as they can. I do want to tell you about an incident that happened in Indio, and it was just fairly recently that the thieves got into a underground vault. They stole about $100 worth of copper and probably received somewhere between $25 and $50 for it. It cost the IID $65,000 to repair that damage. Now that's just IID side of the equation. That's not all the businesses, because it was over there by that North End Target, that whole shopping center and a whole bunch of residents over there. That doesn't include what happened to them being out of business and what kind of tax base they lost or the city lost and or income to those particular businesses over there. This is a real problem. What we're trying to do now is get out to the community, and we are offering a $2,500 public reward on information leading to the arrest and conviction of folks that they see they can turn in. So if the public's out there and you see somebody around our facilities and it's not somebody in an ID uniform and or a city personnel around those boxes, call 911. We're stressing call 911. Don't call IID, don't call the city, call 911. We've been working with the police departments in the different areas to get out there and find out what's going on and create some arrests. We're also adding physical security to the IID facilities. It's costing us more money, but we've got to do this mainly because of just the nuisance of it. When it's out, we've got to pay those folks to go repair that, and again, they're stealing, minimal amounts of money, but it sure is costing us a lot of money. That money long-term affects all of our rates, and we're hoping to keep our rates down, but it has to come from somewhere, and it's going to have to come from rates. We're not for profit, so we're just out there trying to make sure that we can keep our rates down. I do have some flyers that I am going to bring to the city that we're having printed up now, and I do want to make sure that those get put in on the desks here and in your wherever you have the ability to show those. It really helps a lot, us working together with the city on trying to stop this deterrent. And if there's any questions, I'm under my 3 minutes, so if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to.
Is the message here to call 911?
Absolutely. That's
key
the
part of
message.
the message?
Yes.
Eyes alert, and anything you see, it is a 911 call, no one else. Go
Right.
right to.
Yeah, because by the time the IID dispatches somebody to get out there, they're gone.
Yeah.
And we're doing everything we can to try and deter this. We've got special replacement in the copper. It's a steel, it's a very, very thinly coated copper steel wrap, very, very difficult to break or cut through. And so we have those deterrents that we're trying to put up in its place. One of our guys even developed a 250-pound a vault cover, because right now they're fiberglass. So you can just basically take a hammer and smash in the bolts and pull the fiberglass off. This thing is 250 pounds, so if they're going to try and get into that. But again, it takes a long time to replace all this stuff. So, and it's very expensive. So we're trying to get it replaced. We're just saying, call 911. From there, we'll handle it.
Now, it's my understanding too that the folks where they would take this, they're now bound by certain laws.
Right.
To make them, how is that working?
It's working okay. We still believe that there's some ways around, the recyclers to still accept. I mean, it's how high is it on the priority list? But there is some legislation I know that Brian Estandy has put in. I haven't seen the final language of it, but it's going to make it even more of a deterrent for these folks to take metal here. Now that doesn't mean.
Keep us posted.
Yeah,
so that
I
we
will.
can write letters of support.
Absolutely. I will definitely make sure that your city manager gets all the information. The other thing too is we believe that they're leaving the state. They can steal it and go out and leave the state, and they may end up over in Arizona or down in Mexico with this stuff. So at one point they were stealing the gates off of our canals down in Imperial Valley and taking them into Mexico and selling them for $25 a gate. So, I mean, we've informed the Border Patrol, we've informed the Mexican authorities, we've been trying to work with everybody to try and stop them.
So our neighboring states do not have the same laws.
No, not at this time.
Has there been an effort there?
I believe that there is an effort because they're getting copper theft over there as well. I don't know what they're doing legislatively or how they're trying to deter it, but it is happening here a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, Pat, are you going to put an ad to that effect and then looking to Jim so we can let everybody know here in the
Absolutely,
city?
we can do that.
Great, that way
We
it
will do
gets
that.
to everybody in the city.
Okay, appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, glad to.
Councilmember Osborne, everyone stand, please.
Everybody, in regard to me, pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll go on to confirmation of agenda. Frank, do you have any changes?
No changes. Just want to alert you all again that once we get done with the business items on this afternoon's agenda, we would like you to break into closed session so we can cover the one matter that we need to discuss.
Okay. Council members?
Yeah, and I would request, if you don't mind, pulling consent calendar item number 3 and making it business 2.
Okay. We can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Presentations, we have none. Written communications, none. Approval of minutes of April 16th.
Second.
Please vote.
My button's fixed.
Motion passes.
Move consent calendar was the amendment to number 3.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes. We go to business session number 1. An ordinance amending the La Quinta Municipal Code, Section 11.44.060, Parks and Recreation Areas, prohibiting smoking in city parks. Do you want a staff report?
Steve, go ahead.
I don't know if we need one.
Do we need a staff
Anybody
report?
need a staff report?
I don't.
I know what it is.
Okay. Do we need we have a motion?
Well, comments, maybe not
Okay,
questions.
I'm so sorry, go
That's
ahead.
all right. So this is exciting to me, and I like this whole ordinance on no smoking. If we can ban it from the city, that'd be great, but we'll start with the parks. I guess my question and/or comment would be the implementation process. It looks like it's 30 days after the second reading. And in terms of making sure we adequately communicate and promote and educate prior to the enforcement piece, I think we're obviously going to get a lot more compliance. And I'd love to reach back out to the Club Live group and see how we might be able to engage them in assisting us in the education part, since they came to us and helped promote that healthy lifestyle. So whatever we can do, website, gym, schools, postings,
High
all of those
school.
things, groups, et cetera.
We can make that happen.
Okay.
Question if I could.
Sure.
So from a aspect of compliance, so who's going to be in charge of writing these tickets? I mean, is somebody be walking through the park on a regular basis monitoring this? How are we going to monitor this?
Well, we have specific areas that are known to be problems with smokers, one of them being the parking lot at La Quinta Park directly across from the high school. Before and after school, kids do like to gather there and smoke and leave their cigarette butts. So that's a hot spot that we could request that the school resource officer be there before and after school once the sign is posted.
I mean, we've already got laws regarding the underage kids smoking, so I mean, that's, my concern is adding laws on top of laws that we already have. And, I guess I appreciate what we have here and the aspect of healthy lifestyle. Everybody knows that smoking causes cancer. Everybody knows it's bad for you. However, many people still choose to smoke, and that's their personal right to do that. And I have a challenge telling a smoker that you can no longer go to the park if you're going to smoke, or smoke in the park. And I think all of our citizens have a right to go to our parks. They all pay taxes and whatnot for that ability to go to the park. They need to be considerate of others. They obviously need to clean up after themselves with the cigarette butts, as we saw the other day with the kids. And that's definitely a problem. But I have a challenge with this in the sense that I see too many times that people that choose to smoke, for whatever reason, that's up to them, are treated as a secondhand citizen, that they're not allowed to enjoy the aspects of our city that anybody else can. And maybe that's just while they're smoking, but nonetheless, I have a challenge with that. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I'll just comment on Louis' comments, because I certainly appreciate your sense in bringing that forward. I don't have a problem with it because I choose not to smoke in the city parks anyway, and everybody knows that I'm a smoker. You want me to repeat all that?
I heard you.
And so I would hope
I think the smokers that still exist in a lot of ways are causing themselves public problems, the kind of problems that you want to pass an ordinance for because they don't clean up after themselves. They do leave their cigarette butts. They are not considerate of the group of people that's around them. So I think in a lot of ways they're causing their own problem, where if they would adopt some normal consideration and manners about it, maybe they wouldn't be finding themselves bound under certain laws. The earlier comment from Councilmember Evans that she hopes she could ban them from the entire city, I think would be going just a little too far in our
Start with parks.
rights, constitutionally living in the same earth as other people. So I do think that this deserves to be passed, and I'm also concerned, as you are, with. But I'm hoping that maybe these kinds of things will bring some awareness to smokers that pay attention.
Well, in essence, it's a form of littering, when you get right down to it.
Well, sure
So
it is. Yeah.
We don't allow
pollution.
that.
Yeah, and we already have a law for littering.
Yes,
so-
we do.
Pollution.
Okay. Did you have more to say?
No, it doesn't matter.
Smokers are welcome in our parks. They just can't smoke while they're in
They
them.
just can't
We
smoke
can-
while they're
We welcome
in
lots
there.
of people in our parks.
It's,
And there's currently legislation trying to get through Sacramento that allows a lot of people in the park the right to certain activities that you don't have the right to.
Yes. We've
And-
got to work on that legislation.
And
Yes.
so there are legislation pieces out there that are non-functional for the country, if you will.
well, let me ask, does this include Silver Rock? So if somebody wanted to have a smoke a cigar while they were playing golf at Silver Rock, would they be disallowed from smoking a cigar at Silver Rock?
No, Silver Rock wouldn't be considered a public park. I mean, it's separate, and it has a place for people to actually have a cigarette. There are areas at the restaurant where people can smoke there.
Okay, okay. All right, I just, the laws continue to creep into our personal lives more and more and more, but people need to be cognizant of others around them in regards to smoking in public places. And most are. Most are.
Yes, I think so.
But I hate to put a law in the books just because of that. But.
Does it help your score when you have the cigar when you're playing golf?
Oh.
Duh.
I don't know.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So with that, I will move to take up ordinance number, I don't have my cheat sheet.
510.
510, oh, here it is, by title number only and waive further reading, and this is regarding the amendment of section 11.44.0.0 of the La Quinta Municipal Code.
060. Great.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, please vote. Motion passes.
Ordinance 510, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, amending Section 11.44.060 of the La Quinta Municipal Code pertaining to smoking in city parks.
And with that, I'll also move to introduce ordinance number 510 on first reading.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes. Okay, we're going to go to business number 2, which was consent 3. With respect to constructing a modern roundabout at the intersection of Eisenhower Drive and Calle Sinaloa, project number 2010-11.
I think you have a public speaker that, I'd like to hear the comments first.
Sure,
if that's
absolutely.
all right.
Kay. Kay Wolf.
This is it, right?
On the right.
How did it get to be so short? K Wolf 77227 Cayenne Sonata.
That will pick up. You
Okay, okay, I don't have to shout into it. I'll try to say something different than I've said the last 5 times that I've spoken to you on this subject. I'm still obviously in support of this. I'd just like to share with you a series of phone calls and emails that I have gotten from a lady who lives with her older parents on the corner of Sinaloa and Bermudez, where there is a signal. And she tells me, and I believe has told staff, how much she would like to have a roundabout on her corner. And what she suffers from having a signal there is the kind of thing that people on that corner of Sinaloa and Eisenhower would be suffering. Right. Most of all, fumes, lots of fumes, and her parents are apparently having a hard time dealing with the fumes, the noise from the motors as they idle, and the loud radios as they idle there. And so I think that having a roundabout at Sinaloa and Eisenhower is a wonderful first step. I would, of course, love to see it embellished with all kinds of wonderful things, but I know that that's your decision, not mine, thankfully. But, make it as beautiful as you can afford, but it would be wonderful to have it in and as quickly as possible and see how people enjoy it, and the neighbors will appreciate not having the fumes, the noise from the automobiles. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Okay, comments?
Question, if I could?
Okay.
Golden Valley Construction Company, are they a local vendor?
No, I don't believe, they're not from the Coachella Valley.
Did we have any local vendors apply for this contract? I will continue to ask this question as we go through this year and all years regarding local vendors.
I'd like to,
Oh. Apparently Golden Valley is from Indio, so they are local.
They are a local vendor.
We've never had a job with them before.
Did
Yeah, I've
you
never
get
heard
them
of
to
them
move?
either out here in the valley.
No, ma'am, they've always been from Indio, they have not yet, I apologize, Nick Nickerson. They've always been from Indio, they've done a lot of private work, they've worked with a lot of your private developers in your town. I did their due diligence, and they've worked with a number of different local contractors, and now they're branching out and applying for municipal work.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much, Nick.
I'd like to hear that.
Thanks, you guys.
And then that generates a question, because it's very difficult for private contractors to suddenly go to municipal work, depending on the size of their operation, because of the bonding requirements. So is this something that do we know, have a sense that these folks, in fact, are going to be able to get bonded, or will we not find that out until we go into that 30-day period of time?
In order for them to submit their bid,
They have to have
they
it.
had to have their bid bond in place, and they had to commit to the bonds in your specs.
Okay.
And during my due diligence, I talked to all of their references, including a lot of what they were doing is they were working as subcontractors to some of the larger contractors that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
I can't vouch for their work. I only vouch for what I was told when I talked to their clients on the phone. And they believe they're, I didn't get one bad thing said.
Yeah, okay. Well, that sounds good.
Glad to see a local vendor on this. Thank you very much, Nick.
Terry?
Yes, one of the reasons why I wanted to pull it is because there are a couple of items that we have an and/or if we so choose. And it's been a wonderful time to be on the city council for the years that I have been, and had the opportunity to be here to see us develop the way we had, with such fine, if you will, almost top-of-the-line libraries and museums and our roundabouts and all. And it's just, we were able to do that because of our structure. We no longer are operating under that same structure, and it becomes a challenge. Now, as I read through this, I can see where the funding is available. I also do believe that there could be some folks in the community that might question why we would go to the extent we are on this roundabout. I agree with Kay, it is needed. We don't want to downsize on this in any way or change it in any way. We're certainly not going to put a traffic signal there. And at this point, it would be pointless to go as far as we're going to and leave that one little piece off. Or two.
Or two.
Yeah, well, I kind of already had the one
Yeah.
in my mind.
Okay, me too.
But being that there is a funding source for this, I'm supportive of.
You're talking about the monument?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I just
What
wanted to.
about your pavers versus stamped concrete?
I'm fine with stamped concrete, but, you know, I'm not gonna make an argument for or against.
What do we
It's-
have on the other two roundabouts?
Yeah, the downtown roundabout truck
Three
apron
roundabouts.
over by the city parking lot, by the old Teddy's restaurant, does have pavers. I believe all of the other ones, though, are colored stamped concrete.
Stamped concrete, right.
And I think they both look,
Mhm.
you can't really tell them that, I mean, not driving a car, you can't
I
tell
hope
them.
not.
Certainly if you walk over
No.
them, you can. And you don't, have the option of having weeds and things growing up
Through
between
them,
this,
right.
the stamp.
Right.
So I think maybe the stamp really might be a better way to go.
Linda?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. Lee, do you have anything? Okay.
Okay, I would like to move approval to award the contract to Golden Valley Construction and include the enhancement of the entry monument wall to use Art and Public Places funds in the amount of $28,600, but to utilize stamped concrete for the bottom portion of the roundabout.
Have a second?
Second.
Just
Please vote.
for clarification, just real quick, that includes the appropriation then of the,
464,019.
Right, yes.
right.
In the development impact fee funds. Correct?
I was including the 28,600 from APP also is
Yes.
being appropriated. as a
Yes.
motion.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Has everyone voted?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes, no?
We're voting again?
No.
We got it.
I got it.
Okay, good.
Motion passes.
I think we're up here for the next thing.
Okay. We're going to study session, item number 1, alternatives for the replacement of the Coachella Canal within the Silver Rock Golf Course. Staff report? No? Yes.
Okay.
Staff?
Thank you. Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. Had to find our place. This item was last before the City Council back in December, where we talked about the fact that we have the canal that bisects the Silver Rock Resort parcel has subsided. The portion that is just north of the, what we call the L4 pump station, all the way over to Jefferson Street, that portion of the canal has actually sunk with the rest of the canal through the valley, while the portion that is running south and ends up behind PGA West and over to Lake Cahuilla has remained on bedrock and therefore is uphill, if you will, from the lowered section. The result has reduced the capacity of the canal by about 50%, and so staff of both CVWD and the city have been working since 2009 to figure out options for replacing the canal, relocating the canal, and so forth. That back in March of 2012, a canal alignment agreement was reached between CVWD and the city, and a design was completed for 2 options, which we'll go into in a minute, to bring a 75% design to the City Council on these 2 options for selection for one to be constructed. So looking at the first option, the Coachella Canal would be relocated in a pipe, 108-inch diameter pipe, starting at Jefferson Street where it intersects the property, wrought in the orange alignment that is shown in the diagram, down south to Avenue 54, and then west to just past the 15th tee box at Silver Rock, and then cuts across a parcel and then outflows into the existing canal behind PGA West.
Tim, may we back up and ask a question on that?
Sure.
In this scenario, we do not have to replace the pump station or move the pump station?
Well,
Or we do?
You aren't required to. It actually, it will function with the L4 pump station, which you can see on the diagram, and the east-west portion of the canal could remain in place. It's an additional $1 million to, maybe $1.4 million to take that canal out of service and move the L4 pump station over to what will be the forebay where the orange line intersects the canal right now. The reason why it's that expensive and the L4 pump station has to stay in service is because it sends water to the north from the canal up to the Citrus and other developments up to the north. So the 54-inch pipe and other things that connect to that L4 pump station would have to be moved along with it. And then a new pipe section would be created to the north up to Avenue 52 from the new relocated pump station.
Okay.
But it could be built independent. The revised numbers, when we get to them, have it shown as included.
All right, thank you.
So this is just depicts what the pipe section it would be. Minimum cover, I believe, is about 3 feet. It goes to upwards of close to 10 feet, I believe, in some sections. The big thing when we install the pipeline inside of the parkways is that this CVWD, or BOR actually, would get a new easement, a 60-foot easement. Once this is in service, the city would not be able to plant any major trees within the easement area. We wouldn't be able to put any structures in that area, just in the off event that for some reason they had to get to the pipeline to do some maintenance or repairs on it. You can go to the next slide. So looking at the cost, if you include that L4 pump station relocation, it's close to or probably right around a $14 million project. CVWD has estimated the cost for doing just the parallel canal option to be about $3.9 million, so that's their contribution. So the city would be on the hook for the rest, which would be $10 million, maybe $10 million too, including the L4 relocate. We have golf course impacts that Landmark has estimated about $763,000. Because the canal would have to be backfilled, the existing canal, once it's relocated into the pipeline. We estimate that could be done in July or August of 2014. So that lost revenue is reflected there, as well as the cost to fix the golf course itself, to put in some additional turf and so forth to repair the old pipe or the old channel alignment. So the second option is the parallel canal option, which is shown here in blue. And basically what that entails is a parallel canal would be constructed about 41 feet to the west of the existing canal. It would be built at a slightly lower elevation, as shown here in the cross section. It's the section on the right is the new canal section. It would have, as it were constructed, they would be breaking up and backfilling the old canal, so it's kind of done in one operation. This work would take basically from May 1st of next year through the end of the summer to complete. So the backside of the golf course would have to be taken out of commission during that entire time frame. And then once the construction is completed on the new canal, CVWD is going to require that for access for maintenance that there be about a 15 to 20 foot clear space on the shoulders of either side of the new canal, and in addition to a buffer area of native landscaping that would prevent irrigation and other things from entering into the canal. So the footprint would be quite a bit wider than what you see out there right now with the realigned canal. Because of these additional requirements. So looking at the next slide is the cost, estimated at around $6.5 million if you include the impacts to the city, which we're basing this budget on how much it would cost, including the city's repairs to the golf course, both before and after the project takes place. Before the canal can be relocated, the irrigation system and so forth has to be reworked and removed out of the existing right-of-way. It crosses under the canal in certain places. We also have bridges and other things that go over the canal. So that cost, plus the amount of time that, additional time that would be taken in order to construct the canal and take the backside of the golf course out of commission, comes out to about $2.5 million. That money, that does not include design cost, which just for preliminary numbers is probably in the $100,000 to $150,000 range to do the design work on top of that. So that work, if we were to move forward on that option, we would need to actually move the irrigation this summer. We would relocate it out of the right-of-way and out of the way of the new construction. And then next spring, in May 1st, take the backside of the golf course out of commission so that the canal contractor could come in and actually construct the parallel canal. So just summarizing the alternatives and the pros and cons of each. The underground pipeline, we would have in the future by moving the pipeline to the perimeter of the site. You would not have the BOR permitting issues that we had when we built the first golf course, which take any kind of crossing or any kind of work in the BOR right-of-way takes an encroachment permit, just like working in a city right-of-way. The challenge there is it's usually at least a 6-month process. More than likely, it's more like a year to get BOR approval over any kind of significant project. So that would be, that would need to be taken into effect. There's relatively minor damage and loss of play to the Palmer course compared to the second alternative, because you're basically, all you're doing is breaking up the old canal, backfilling it, and making it look like the rest of the golf course. There is greater time to work with Palmer to redesign the affected holes, because we basically wouldn't be doing the redesign work until after the canal is removed at the end of next summer. So we have a little more time to work on that, actually quite a bit more time to work on that than we would if we do the parallel canal option. The infrastructure cost to go under and over the canal with roadways and so forth is fairly significant, so we would save there. The maintenance cost of having a canal that runs and bisects basically the two halves of the golf course increases our maintenance costs. Increases the amount of time it takes to play the golf course, and of course there's the aesthetics that can be a challenge with the open channel. Option 2, the parallel canal, of course it's quite a bit less expensive than option number 1. The relocated canal does help the 15th hole. Anybody who's played the golf course realizes how much of a challenge it is to play that hole. As I can personally attest to, with it being very narrow and the green is scrunched in because of the existing canal. So if it moves to the west, at least that hole will play better. Does not impact Jefferson and Avenue 54 parkways. That's a benefit, not having to tear out that landscaping that's over there. And then reduce right-of-way costs because you don't have to buy that easement across the back of PGA West. So if the council, so what we're looking to do by June 1st is make a selection of the preferred alternative, and then we would direct CBWD to complete the design of whichever alternative the council goes with. If the pipeline option is selected, then by July 2nd, we would bring back a construction agreement with CBWD that spells out how the expenses are going to be shared with them for the construction of the pipeline. And then CBWD would pre-order the pipe, because it takes about 4 or 5 months just to construct enough 108-inch diameter pipe to start the project. That would be delivered later in the year, and then the pipeline project can start really any time because it doesn't affect golf, because it's being done over in the parkway of Jefferson Street. And then, but if the parallel canal option was chosen, then by August 6th, we would need to complete that irrigation relocation project that I mentioned, bid it, and hopefully do that in connection with the overseat of the golf course, so that all comes together before November 1st when the golf course reopens. So that concludes my staff report. I'm here as well as Brian McKinney. We have staff from Coachella Valley Water District here also to answer any questions you might have. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. Linda, do you have questions?
When Silver Rock was developed initially with the specific plan in mind, was there any discussion under the option of putting the canal underground at that time? When there was just loads of money available?
Boy, I can't.
Anybody?
I can't
Not that I
recall it.
remember, we weren't talking about it at that point in time.
We did not have any public discussions, nor
Right.
did we as a council have private, but I know that I talked to Tom about the possibility of relocation and what it might entail at some time, and was assured, and not only by Tom, but by all of the contractors that were looking at the project and the golf course designers, that the canal did not interfere with the progression and the build-out of Silver Rock. So it was a quirk of fate that we have a canal that sank.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, go ahead, Linda.
yeah, and I guess they're not questions per se, but this is one of those opportunities. And clearly, when you just look at the black and white component of it, the less expensive parallel canal with our situation in terms of RDA going away and that piece, and looking at $10 million because we have a sinking issue and because we get the chance to change it, let's do it this way, is a grand thought. But when you look at the practicality of what Silver Rock has accomplished as a course, it's won awards, it's been part of the Bob Hope, it's been, you know, accoladed throughout the golf magazines, people come from all over to play it, and it's had a canal the whole time. And it hasn't been a major obstruction because certain golf courses have these things. So, you know, I look at it as, wow, this is really our destination. This is really that piece of property that's going to help drive revenue for the future of our city. And as we are now looking at and discussing business terms with our selected group, Robert Green and Merriweather, you know, we're at that crossroads of spending a lot of money for something that would be really cool and really nice, when we have a perfectly acceptable alternative that is much more practical and affordable. So, you know, and I don't know if there's a hybrid option where some parts of it are under and some parts remain above ground, and, you know, how does that look in the development of that property with the resort component? So, you know, I wish we could write a check for $10 million, just say let's put it underground, when we have a lot of other things in the city we have to worry about. So, you know, I'm toying. I don't have a decision yet, but my practical side is saying the above ground, we'll have to figure out how to make it work and have that $10 million, if we get those bond proceeds somewhere that we could utilize with all the DOF stuff going on, you know, that we'll be able to put to better use. But I remain open. But obviously, if that discussion wasn't a solid discussion when this whole thing started and the specific plan was being developed, it's kind of like, okay, so it was okay then. Is it okay now? You know, that's all.
Yeah, I'm also struggling with this problem, if you will, with this little fate issue that was dropped in our lap. And I think one of the things in the staff report, well, actually a couple of them that are in here, I mean, I really appreciate all of the folks that think it would be wonderful to underground. And I think every one of them would have answered the question that way. I'm not sure you even needed to ask them. Yes, it would be wonderful to put it underground. You want to write, any of you want to write the check. And I go back to day one where the canal was not a hindrance to the build out of Silver Rock. However, you know, is it now? In its current state, there is a hindrance out there. Can it be corrected? Can it be corrected for $4 million or $10 million? The thing that's in the staff report that I cannot believe in today's world with the kind of technology that we have, there couldn't be some higher level of comfort on, is it going to sink again in the future?
Band-Aid approach.
Yeah, that, you know, but I can't believe there isn't some piece of technology out there that can measure the density of the Earth and the stability of it. And because I don't like having that hanging over my head, at least I'd like to know if that exists, if that kind of information is available. I certainly don't want to well, I guess I would not have to worry about revisiting this issue, but I don't think I would want folks in the future to have to revisit the issue. So I'm still looking like, and that's not quite hybrid, but it kind of, and then I guess my other questions are, what kind of a contingency is built into the funds that you have on the table here?
I believe we said we had a 10 or 15% contingency in the construction funds. Just on your first point about the subsidence question, in talking to CVWD, that a lot of their projects that they have done, or they've done several projects, I should say. Recently, the groundwater recharge project in south of Trilogy is one. In the idea behind it is to keep the groundwater table high, because that's what's led to the collapse in large part across the valley. So depending on who you're talking to, it would seem that would serve to mitigate the sinking problem that has occurred since the 40s, since the original construction of the channel. And CVWD staff could explain that a lot better than I'm doing, but that is why those things exist, or those projects were done. The estimates, though, that we've given you tonight are based on 75% plans. They're not construction plans yet. We've put an appropriate contingency into them. The one that probably deserves a bigger contingency is the relocation of the L4 pump station, because of the fact that we didn't include that in the 75% design, so that that $1 million plus number it could move quite a bit north of that if depending on what shakes out when we're designing it. So that's why I included that when I gave the staff report. But for the most part, you're looking at a 10 to 15% contingency on these prices.
And what is your gut feeling on the estimate of the time frame that you have down here of being able to adhere to that?
For the pipeline project, it's a lot less schedule driven, because there is time before that construction would start, so that I feel more comfortable with that timeline. The parallel canal option is going to be tight, because we're going to have to get the irrigation system redesign done post haste and move on that in order to be able to not affect the opening of the golf course this fall. We're really going to have to work hard on that. As far as CVWD's contractor that comes out to install the parallel canal, I think they're going to be pushed to complete the work before the end of the summer. And there's going to be, with any project that involves a lot of excavation and stuff like that, there's that's a challenge. There's the bedrock that is there also, and so they're gonna have to hustle. But it's their designer has built a lot of canals and feels that time frame is appropriate.
I guess part of my problem is, as one of those, a little bit of knowledge sometimes can really hurt you instead of help you. And having been in the underground business, I've seen very few underground jobs that went on time, on schedule, and on budget. And when they go off of budget, you don't talk about going off of budget, $100,000. You talk about it went off budget when it's $1 million. And they mostly go off budget. So I anticipate a lot of complications out there, because that's what happens when you go underground. However, it would seem to me that the north part of the canal. That's all on-site, and we should pretty well know what's underground there, so there should not be too many surprises that could happen on-site.
I agree that the site, we excavated the entire site in creating the first golf course. We
Right.
pushed dirt from the entire project site, so it's all disturbed on site. But you're right, once you get off-site, we don't have as much information. We were just talking actually before the meeting, one of the first things that CVWD has to do in order to construct the parallel pipeline is they have to do a bunch of borings along the new alignment to make sure that they aren't going to hit anything, and there's some archaeological things that they have to check out before they can go on that alignment that were proposed. So yes, they could very well find difficulties over there.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I would be surprised if there aren't challenges as we went along that process. And I would feel very comfortable going that way if we were working under the same operational plan that we had in place when we embarked on this endeavor. But we aren't. And I think we have to take a lot of things into consideration. I'm going to be really milling this around when it comes back again.
Well, and if I can just add to that, Terry, I mean, when you look at the fact that the issue is a CVWD issue that has then created an impact on the city of La Quinta, and that impact is $2.48 million. That's on the parallel, and regardless of what they're going to pay for to do what they need to do, there's already a big impact to us. That's what we're pulling out of reserves to get a balanced budget.
That's a reserve issue.
You know, so that impact alone, regardless if we've got an option A or a B, is big.
Yeah.
And then if you jump to 10, that's when you, So I look forward to hearing more from perhaps our developers and some creative ideas of what they can come up with on having us meet the right
Thank you.
solution.
Well, first, in regards to the aspect of, did we look at this back then when we first developed Silver Rock versus today? I mean, today, putting this underground, we've got additional funding from CVWD of almost $4 million. If we were to put this underground previously, it would have all been out of our pocket, 100%. And we have an opportunity to put it underground and have $4 million, or 3.9, coming from CVWD to help us do that. So that's a pretty big issue right there, with the additional funding to put this underground.
But it's going to cost us $4 million to replace what we have to tear up so that we gain $4 million, so that we've actually, now we're even again.
Well, let's talk about funding for a minute, because we've got $9 million in bond funds to pay for this. If we do not go with this, and we do not go with the underground, and we go with the parallel, I don't know that we can use bond funds to repair what damage they have caused. If that's going to be general fund money versus bond money. Bond money for the construction versus general fund for the repairs of the damage that the water district has caused. I don't know, Frank, if you have an answer for that question?
We can use, we can use bond funds for the repairs, but we cannot use bond funds to cover any of the operating losses to the golf course. So when we see under the parallel canal option, and there's a $1.7 million cost estimate for golf course impacts, we can use bond funds for that piece, but not for the $781,000 of lost revenue.
So we have about a $500,000 difference from a general fund aspect of the $263,000 in lost revenue versus the $781,000. So about a $500,000 difference from the general fund standpoint going on, meaning more additional general funds needed from the parallel canal option. But what I also, in that sense that, right, we have the bond funds, the Silver Rock design within itself, go ahead.
We don't have the bond funds yet until the DOF
Well,
issues.
we have the bond
There's
funds. Then will they be
potential
available
access.
to be used is dependent upon the DOF, finalizing the DOF issue.
Correct.
But the DOF is not going to be touching those $9 million. That stays there. That is not part of the $41 million that the DOF is trying to take away. So those funds are still there. We're not going to lose those funds. It may just be a timing on when those funds
and
are available.
access, correct.
So the aspect of Silver Rock in itself and the development of Silver Rock, if that canal is underground, it just opens up so much of, opportunities from a design standpoint for Silver Rock. And I don't want to discount the health and welfare aspect of that canal, putting it underground. If at that point we have hotels on Silver Rock, and at that point we had children running around Silver Rock, is the BOR or the CBWD going to require us to fence the canal? Because at some point they may, from a health and welfare standpoint, mandate that we have to have that fenced, or they may pay for it, but that's yet to be looked at. But I'm concerned that once we have hotels out there and we have children out there playing around, are there going to be other health or welfare issues, for safety issues for this canal?
Liability issues.
Exactly, exactly. I just think that we have an opportunity and we have the funding to put this underground, to wide open the aspect of Silver Rock. And one of the issues that I have there is when we first designed Silver Rock and we had a land planner come in, he looked at, the first 18 holes, the second 18 holes, where the hotels are going to go to, and we had a great land use map. And then we had the Arnold Palmer group come in and they changed some things around. Then we had the Lowe's group come in and they changed some things around. So I'm sure when the new developers come in, they're going to change things around again. So to have somewhat of a blank slate to let them do what they want to do without concerns of the canal, I think is pretty big. Now, understanding too that looking at option 1 with the underground canal at $10 million, if we go with option number 2, the parallel, it's still going to cost us at least $2.5 million. So maybe the difference is actually $7.5 million we're looking at. And I don't know if does that make sense?
Round numbers.
We're really looking at a net of about $7.5 million on this.
Cost of the pump station.
No, that includes the pump station, because the $1 million for the pump station is included in the $10 million total.
That's correct.
That's right, okay.
So, and then again with the parallel canal, what they're going to do with the parallel canal in expanding their easement, expanding their availability to the canal, meaning are they going to have a gravel road on both sides of that canal? So that's going to destroy 15 even worse. I know when the Bob O Classic was out there, the one complaint that was said consistently was the 15 was too narrow, and the players didn't like that at all. And I know that was one of their issues on the Silver Rock, was the 15. So if we've got the money to do it, and we put it underground so we don't have any safety issues or design issues to worry about in the future, and we can do it sooner than later, it just makes sense. It just makes sense to take this opportunity to improve Silver Rock and improve the viability of the designs out there with the hotels and the second golf course. And we've got the funding. Well, it's timing. When's that funding going to be available? Whether it's this year or whether it's next year, we still have that funding. So we've got the monies to do it, and I think it makes a huge improvement to Silver Rock, and just gives us so much more flexibility and gives the designer and the developer more flexibility to make it successful.
Yeah, I have a question for you, maybe on what you're saying, Lee. If we went ahead and said, okay, we're going to spend the 10 to run the pipeline, and DOF says, after the fact, we've already spent half the 10 or whatever, yes, we can release those bond funds. Can we use those bond funds then to reimburse what we might have taken out of our reserve account for the first 5 or whatever, hypothetically?
It's a two-part answer. Yes, we can use the bond funds to reimburse the cost incurred by the general fund reserves. However, the bond funds are tax-exempt monies, so they would then be limited for reuse on items relating to infrastructure improvements and public facilities. So we couldn't use those funds for operational costs or things of that nature because they're tax-exempt.
So it's strictly construction.
Strictly construction.
Absolutely.
The dollar
This
thing?
is a study session, girl.
I may have missed an and, if, or but somewhere along the line. So I'd like to hear your professional, bottom line opinion on, yes, we have the $9 million. That's our money at some time. With all the legislation.
I had this conversation today with Mr. Erke at lunch as we roll into our discussion in closed session. And one of the points that we discussed with this was the fact that if we're successful or not successful at the litigation regarding our $41 million, in any event, however that takes place, the next step would be to receive a finding of completion from the Department of Finance. While the procedures are still rather murky on how things work, basically then, once we receive the finding completion, we would then put on our future recognized obligation payment schedule the fact that we would be using the $9 million of 2002 bond proceeds for the Silver Rock improvements. The point that comes then is that the Department of Finance then gets to review the recognized obligation payment schedule and does so, as the law currently sits, on an every 6-month basis. So we're just entering, as a state, as a group, the next phase of what this means to get a finding of completion, and then the procedures that would be involved after that. So at this point, it's not clear whether we get carte blanche to say, okay, we have the finding of completion, we have these bond proceeds, this is the purpose that they were issued for, and we can now dedicate all $9 million towards this purpose, or instead we have to go through the 6-month review and approval process by DOF on an ongoing basis. So it's still unclear, but basically, as best we can interpret it, we would get access to the money, but we would go through further review, and we don't know yet if it's a one-time review and a sign-off, or if it's an every 6-month review with a sign-off every 6 months.
But they could at the same time come up, I mean, you're still saying that it would all be a positive thing, but it would be moving along in a certain kind of time frame with unknown outcomes. Is there a place along the way that one of the unknown outcomes is no, you cannot use those funds for that?
Let me jump in here for a second. I apologize for not introducing Bill Erke earlier. He's from Rutan and Tucker, our expert tonight.
Well, members of the council, as the city manager was saying, once you get a finding of completion, pre-2011 debt, and those excess proceeds can be used for purposes for which the bonds were issued.
Right.
So the short answer to your question is, as long as you're within the confines of what the bond documents said the proceeds have to be used for, tax exempt, public infrastructure, or along those lines, you are within the confines of what the law says now that you would be able to use them.
Okay.
The 6-month ROPS period, as it is right now, would still apply. And the reason for that is the law says that once you've got a finding of completion, or even though you do have one, you still have to identify the funding source for those projects that are going to be paid for with the bond proceeds, or basically because it's connected to redevelopment or post-redevelopment. So that's the reason for having to put it on the ROPS every 6 months. Presumably, once you've got your finding of completion and you've got the documents that explain these are bond proceeds, we're using them for the purposes for which they are issued, and you present that evidence to the department, they have no basis under the law to deny that. Presumably, if you get it once, first time around, or you don't get it first time around, you fight for it, you eventually get it, you should be able to use it from then on out, because those uses will be consistent with what the bonds allow you to use it for.
Does this document, the finding of completion, is that what
Right.
we're using here? Does that document in and of itself identify that particular $9 million?
No. I've seen a few of them because there are successor agencies out there that have actually received them. It's basically a one-page letter where the department says, congratulations, you've paid all the money you need to, you get your finding of completion, and that does enable you to take advantage of basically 3 things, one of them being use of bond proceeds such as the ones we're talking about
So we
here.
could make this whole thing easy and send them a check for $41 million tomorrow, and maybe in 30 days get our letter of completion, and we'll have.
You'd actually get it in 5 working days.
In 5 working
Yeah,
days?
once it's paid, the entire amount is paid under the statute, the department has to issue it within 5 business days. There is an application on the department's website that you're supposed to fill out, but I have heard of the department just giving them out once the payments have been made and they know about it. So there is a quick turnaround time, but there is a big price tag that is attached to it.
Still exists.
The ROPS, right, the ROPS requirement will kick in basically once you get your finding of completion, because that's when you can start using those.
And there's still the 2-year change your mind clause.
Which, the 2-year change your mind as,
Anything that they can come back and claw back on anything that they did,
Oh.
they still have up to 2 years to say we changed our mind.
not necessarily in connection with the finding of completion. Because if you've got a finding of completion, the statute reads you should be good to go on being able to use those proceeds.
It doesn't read you should be good to go.
No.
You should,
Right.
be good to go.
Right. The statute entitles you to use those bond proceeds. Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Then in terms of the legislation that is being proposed by some other magic wand person that is looking for even more money the state can take from municipalities in terms of bonds, what's the timing on that relative to our project here?
Are you talking about the legislation on the 2011 bond proceeds that's out there?
Yes, so
Yes,
that wouldn't
981.
apply at all for this bunch of money. That's another 28 million that we have to worry about.
Yeah, that law and that bill,
That's our
as it is
other-
now.
981 is a good, we want 981.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want 981.
As it stands now, the legislation AB 981 would authorize bond proceeds from debt issued in 2011 to basically be treated just like all other bonds that were issued by the redevelopment agencies before they were frozen. So it generally is a good thing. The language that is there now would still allow for that, but it's working its way through the legislature right now, and so
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Passed
not
two
the 9.
committees.
it's gotten through 2 committees, and it's now,
Unanimous.
yeah.
But these are pre-211, so we don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Right.
Lee, did you have any more to say? Okay, Tim, the time frame here to do this parallel canal option really concerns me. And I know I asked this question of Andy Vossler before, but what is the time frame for the moving the irrigation? Once, if there was a go on that, is this, I mean, surely you have to find someone to do it and get the work done, and, no?
No,
Not a
the-
big deal?
What we would do is, RBF actually has a proposal in already to work with a irrigation designer to have the work done and put into a biddable plan set. Like I said, by August 6th at the latest, we would need all that together so that we could hit the ground running hopefully in September with a contractor. That might require that we award the project in early September in order to make that happen. And then they would work from basically mid-September through October to relocate those lines as the course is taken down and overseeding is done. That's what our plan is right now.
Okay, and then one more question. If we did the parallel canal, CBWD, I assume, is getting an easement from the DOR, another one? What happens to the current one? And then the second part of that question, because you like to give 2-part answers, is all those folks that own the land underneath, that we don't know who they are yet, How is that going to be rectified?
First off, we would be providing an easement for the the underground pipe canal alignment. And as we sit today, that property is owned by the city of La Quinta. And so far, in all correspondence we've received from the Department of Finance as well as the state controller, their sole focus is on the $41 million of redevelopment loan proceeds that were repaid and not any of our land assets. And so I'd have to turn to Bill in a moment and say what would be the means we would use to belt and suspender that, because at this point the city owns the property, they're not trying to claw it back, and so I believe we would be at liberty to provide that easement.
Okay, I was really talking about the parallel, I'm sorry, not the pipeline.
Okay, so under the parallel option, the city has clear title to the, well, first off, the canal would be within the existing BOR easement. So the parallel canal is in an easement that is under control by the water district. For that portion that would no longer be needed, they would abandon that easement, and then the city would take certain actions to basically go through a process to publicly notify those property owners that may be listed on title for that underlying fee, and go through a legally prescribed process to get abandonment of those titles or that fee ownership so the city could take it over. There's a prescribed public process. It involves in some degree condemnation, but it has been used before to free up and get title to properties that are under defunct corporations or people have been deceased in that. In addition, that property in the easement pursuant to the specific plan is designated for public use. So unless you all decided to rezone it for some other use that would have value, though it runs through a golf course, the value of that property would be very limited, if valued at all.
Okay, all right. So we're comfortable bringing this back next time, next meeting for a decision, please?
Pursuant to meeting, pursuant to meeting CVWD's timeframe, and we've already continued it one time, and they allowed us to do so, this would be back before you at your May 21st meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can, I mean, this gives us a tremendous opportunity to make a huge impact to Silver Rock, to better Silver Rock, and better the developments on Silver Rock. We have the funding to put it on the ground. The CVWD is going to give us pay $3.9 million to help us do it. So I think it's a great opportunity for the city and a great improvement for Silver Rock. And so I hope we look favorable at our next meeting on this matter.
So if oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to, I just wish that I could become of a mind frame that CVWD is coming out here and giving us $3.9 million. I mean, to fix their problem, they're going to give us 3.9 and we're going to come up with 8. You know?
Yeah.
No, I can't think about it that way. But no.
Lee, I mean, I totally agree with you. When this concept was first out there, when Tom was still with us, when this issue was up, it's immediately underground, huge opportunity. So anything else we do on that other parcel of land is just, the slate is clear. We're in a different time frame and a different state and going into budget, and, you know, I'm open. But there's a lot of ducks that are lining up, and we got to see who's going to make dinner, and who's getting shot, and who's, you know, who's all
gonna be
dinner.
dinner.
Yeah,
Who's waddling which way?
exactly. Who's swimming upstream?
Well, one more thing, Tim, if we did go, for example, in May on the parallel canal option, and then CVWD finds out through boring and or environmental problems or whatever else that that's a no-go, worst case scenario, then we would have to do the pipeline, right?
Well, you know, that's a good question. I'm not sure I could say it would definitely increase CVWD's cost in order to construct the parallel canal,
Okay,
that's for
thank
sure.
you. Thank you. Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, just so you know.
That's all I wanted to know. Anything else from council? Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, let's go to reports and informational items. Linda?
Actually, mine's easy. I needed to reschedule the Chamber Exchange Committee, so that's actually at the end of the month. CVAG and E&E meet Thursday, and CVB is on May 17th regarding the tourism district 1% component. So
Jeez, everybody's leaving.
I'll pass on updates.
Okay. Terry?
I really will try to make mine short because I did send you folks a lot of this stuff via email so you could read it ahead of time and not hear me try to read it or explain it to you. But we did have a very active board meeting last week in Sacramento, along with Legislative Action Day, which was on Wednesday. Had the opportunity, we had a briefing early Wednesday morning and spent a great deal of mid-morning to a little later than mid-afternoon over at the Capitol building, visiting with, golly, I tried, visiting with as many assembly members and senators as we could. I actually got around to 3 of them and had again the opportunity to go to a hearing on 861 and testify for it, and it did come out of, that was small business, local government committee, and it was unanimously out of there, and then it went to housing or
Housing, transportation, and economic development, or whatever they call it up in the assembly. It's
yeah,
that
and
one.
I'm not sure if is appropriations next.
Yeah, I think it went to appropriations, and it's headed there if it hasn't been heard this week or not, but that's where it was going next.
Well, if it was heard, we would have heard about it.
That's true. But that's correct, that's where it was going next.
Yeah, it was going to appropriations. It's probably going to hit a snag or two, but best we can do is keep pushing on that one. And as you saw in one of the briefings that I sent you, the governor did take the opportunity to come to our meeting. He was there about an hour. He's really a very dynamic, interesting character. I will try to use words that are maybe ambiguous, and so those of you that want to take it one way can, and those of you that want to take it another way, you can do that too. I had the opportunity to ask him the first question, and I'd been asked to do that. And when the appropriate time came, I did talk to him about, or the question was actually, what was his sense of, as we go forward, what of the various projects or various legislation that's out there was he leaning toward favoring so that we can get back into the infrastructure business and the housing business. Right. He proceeded to explain to me that, or to the board, that cities are very much like school districts, who are very much like water districts, who are very much like the state legislature, who are very much like park districts. They all come to me and they all want money. And I don't have any money. And he said, I've already told the people of the state of California I won't pass taxes or raise taxes unless it goes to a vote. And I took mine to a vote and raised taxes. Now, if you want to come to me with the money, we'll see where we can go. So, in essence, and I kind of, there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in there, but, if you read through the lines, that was really what was being said. And with that, that's why I brought these 2 additional reports, which I'll have one to copy for you, and of course, it's public information. But that's why, and after he left, the board had a chance to discuss it too, that there is another piece of legislation being presented by Mr. Lowenthal. And we know who Mr. Lowenthal is. And this is the Transportation Coalition for Livable Communities proposes a solution for government struggling with greenhouse gas emissions. And so this legislation will go and be
these kind of projects will become part of the cap and trade investment. And so when you want to do highways and building and housing and transportation of any kind, or bridge maintenance, you'll be able to go to the cap and trade investment plan and pool. And again, what's happening here, folks, is the locals are going to have the burden of building this state out. So as you read through all of this stuff, I would remind you to think in terms of where do they think they're going with this stuff. So that was interesting. It was interesting to hear Governor Brown speak to the issue. He is dynamic, and he's made up his mind. And I don't see where there's very much movement coming out of him at all on any issue, unless you're coming prepared to pick up whatever the cost might be.
Well, it seems, you know, they first were, quote, borrowing money from general funds throughout the state of California to balance the budget. The people of California stopped that. So then they were taking money from the RDAs. The people of California stopped that. So then he said, all right, we'll just eliminate RDAs and take all your assets. And he's doing that right now.
Yeah.
But in 5 to 10 years, he's going to be back, or the state, Sacramento will be back, to take more funds from local communities as we, you know, recover from what they've taken so far. And so they'll just continue to take from the communities throughout the state to balance their own problems. It's just a matter of how they find their ways to do it.
Well, and you give an interesting scenario, because the ways that they're planning on doing that is by, if you follow my scenario, is passing the responsibilities to us, so they won't have the responsibilities. There is very serious discussion, again, I'll bring it up, on lowering our ability to pass local taxes by lowering the threshold.
Right.
And there's probably 9 pieces up there right now. Some of it's for a library, some of it's for a fire station, some of it's for safety issues, some of it's for this, you know. And so they're going to pick and choose on what we can pass local taxes on at 50% plus 1 or 55.
Right.
And then we can take on more of the responsibility. So they won't be coming back for more of our money. They're going to be giving us the means. They think that about 2 years of local governments passing taxes, and the community out there is going to say, you need to go somewhere else. You know, they won't pass them. They'll stop passing them. So it's not a good plan that's up there.
No, I don't think the future is going to involve cities. I think they're going to be regional districts of entities of some type of financing.
Well, that's what this says.
For maintenance, and yeah.
Okay.
We won't be able to survive
That's true.
as individuals that long.
Lee?
Anyways,
thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, were you finished?
No, I'm finished.
Okay.
Went to the Imperial Irrigation Energy Consumer Advisory Committee Board meeting last night, and they had quite the agenda, pretty long meeting. One of the items that they talked about is a new procurement policy that the IED will be following according to the state guidelines that the state is using. But one thing I did want to bring up, they do have a manner for local vendors. Then local vendors have the opportunity to go 5% above the lowest responsible bid on any contracts. So they do have some preference for local vendors, which is good to see. In regards to the projects for communities, to help communities, they call it the SB1, to help local communities for different incentive programs for solar projects. You know, they have a total of $5 million to help for solar projects, both residential and commercial. And within that solar $5 million budget, they received applications totaling close to $12 million. But part of this budget is for governmental and nonprofit agencies. And one of the issues that we ran into last night, of their $5 million, they had about $750,000 for government and nonprofits. Within the time frame given, I believe by the end of 2012, the application has to be in by the end of 2012. They make determinations in January of 2013, At that point, they had $552,000 still available for the government and nonprofits. There were 3 groups that applied for those funds, one being the City of Coachella, one being the Coachella Valley Boys and Girls Club, and then a 3rd group. The Coachella Valley Boys and Girls Club wanted $278,000. The City of Coachella wanted $200,000. So it was, we had a pretty lengthy discussion on those 2 items. It was felt by the chairwoman, Lupe Ramos-Watson, and everybody from Imperial Valley, just to take this $552,000, put it into a fund for a lottery. So we have a whole new application period for nonprofits. So those 2, the Coachella Valley Boys and Girls Club and the City of Coachella, their applications were taken out. They'll have to reapply with everybody else within this lottery program for the $552,000, which is too bad because the Coachella Valley Boys and Girls Club has a program for, I believe, a little more than $1 million. They received funding from AQMD for $750,000, so they're going for the other balance of it. But the ECAC recommended to the board not to provide those funds and to hold the money, current monies, for a new lottery program. So hopefully they don't lose that funding they already had from AQMD. There are other programs to help the energy efficient programs to help the communities. You know, they had $32 million of funds available for public benefit programs. Of that $32 million, $20 million is for ongoing projects, and they have a remaining amount of $12 million. They had some charts and some numbers from what has Coachella Valley taken on these programs, what has Imperial County taken on these programs, and it's pretty well split between the 2. But they really have some pretty cool programs, and whether that's air conditioning maintenance programs or, you know, attic programs, you know, energy conservation programs. And then they have some of these other programs we talked about, the REAP, which is Residential Energy Assistance Program. They have the EAP, which is the Emergency Energy Assistance Program. Yes, and the AIC, which is the Aid in Construction of Mobile Home Parks. And then they have the Medical Equipment Energy Usage Assistance Program. So quite a bit of these, like the Residential Energy Assistance Program, 38% of that is used by senior citizens, you know, for their programs. And so, and we've talked about this in the past, that we've given this information to our senior center, so all of them are aware. Hopefully this information goes to our trailer park here in La Quinta, so that they are aware as well. But they got some pretty cool programs to help the communities. And there is, yeah, they've already spent about they've already spent about $6.5 million so far in these programs for the 2012 and 2013. No, this in 2013 so far. They've spent about $6 million. So they've got some pretty good programs to help the communities. And is that it? And then they had some new solar projects going on, and there was a report that came out in 2011 when we had the large blackout, huge blackout area. FERC, Federal Energy Group, is studying this program, and within their report, and they couldn't give us a copy of the report because it has some Homeland Security issues within the utility grid that they couldn't make public from a security standpoint.
Did they redact it, maybe? No?
What's that?
Did they redact that part out?
They just told us that they couldn't release it from public information. But within the report, there was discussion regarding some issues here in Coachella Valley. And so I raised that issue. Are there weaknesses in our system here in the Coachella Valley? And they quickly said, oh, no, of course not. We put quite a bit of funding into this grid here, into this services and the hardware we have here in the Coachella Valley, and promised us that they're making quite a bit of improvements. But there is some concern about this summer. There's definitely some concern about this summer and the amount of energy that's going to be needed this summer. and supplying that. They talked about the excess generators over in Coachella and others that will be brought online to handle these excess needs this summer. But they definitely voiced some concerns there. But that's it. As long as we are getting out the word on these programs to help benefit the community, then they're doing a good job.
Okay,
Going pretty well.
All the committees that I am on personally are either this week or next week or the following month. I did go to CBAG Executive Committee for Don and also Sunlight Transit. But I'm gonna give that report next week when he's here, so I have to double up on that.
Could I follow up real fast?
Absolutely.
Because I got so excited talking about the governor. I forgot to mention that there is a division dinner Monday, and it is in Riverside. I know everybody loves that drive. However, that's the next general division meeting will be in the east side, so hopefully you can attend that. And I think that's really all I needed to catch up on. And make sure you do know that the division is having a golf tournament. I think it's scheduled for October 25th as our division fundraiser.
All right,
Can that be on the east side this year, Sid Maria? Can that be on the east side?
Well, it's right in Banning, Beaumont, Calamasa area, right there. I can't think of the name of it.
Versus Maria. It was in Maria last 2 years.
Last year, we've only done one, and it was last year.
Okay, moving on to department reports. City manager?
Have nothing further.
Okay. City clerk?
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. There's a report in your packet that the City of Paris has requested your support for a $92 million project. It's the dam remediation project. So they have asked if they could come to the May 21st meeting to do a 5-10 minute presentation to you about the project. And on that same meeting, they would like you to adopt a resolution in support of their project. So I wanted to get your feelings about that, whether a presentation was something you felt would assist you, or whether you had the information you needed already.
Linda?
Yeah, I don't mind supporting the resolution since it's not going to cost us anything. We don't have to write a check. And if the state's promised them $92 million and we're somehow impacted by the water that comes from there, I don't necessarily think they need a presentation. I just say we say yes to the resolution if you're all in favor of that.
I agree.
Consensus?
Yeah, I also, particularly because the Coachella Valley Water District does support this. But
Right.
I will point out that the state would fund its $92 million portion with $38 million from Prop 84 bond funds, but the funding source for the remaining $54 million.
Of course, still out there.
Is,
Right.
we'll get a chance to vote on local taxes to come up with the
Right.
$54 million. So, no, I've known about this project for a long time and the problems that the city has had and what they've gone through to get to this point, so I thoroughly support this, and I don't have to have a staff or have them come
Have them
out. and make-
present.
Okay, thank you. I'll let them know.
Okay, that's good. Public Works? Anything? All right. Community, yes?
There was something in Public Works.
Okay.
The update on the Lang Luxury Home PM10 fence. I would just circle back if there's kind of a timing thing based on the potential new. I would just go back to the homeowner that made the complaint, kind of
Okay.
give them an update, that's all. Just keep them in the loop and the communication on
Yeah.
kind of what our plan is, that we're open to looking at it, but then
Was the
there's a
woman
few
from
things.
Laguna? Dana Paz?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've talked to her too. She's easy to deal with.
Okay.
That's all, I mean,
We'll get
that's
back to it.
Okay, community development? Anything on Golden Voice? No, we're good?
Woo-hoo! Another concert season's over, Les. You look rested.
Getting there.
Getting there.
Takes a while.
Mayors and council members' items. Are there any?
I have one.
Okay.
I did attend the Southern California Association of Governments meeting last week, and while we did a vote on the few little things like bylaws, new officers. Greg Pettis will be, of course, the president going forward, which will be nice to have representation from Coachella Valley. That evening, if you recall, last year, I went to Los Angeles for that dinner and accepted the Blueprint Compass Award for our Wolf Waters redevelopment housing project. Well, I participated in another Blueprint Compass Award this year, and it was the Visionary Award, and it was received by CVAG, and this is for the Whitewater Trails project. And so in...
Saw that yesterday.
Yes, so Jan Harnick, Lupe, and Tom and I, and a few of the other folks that were behind the scenes on this, we accepted that award based on just the fact that we were kind of part of that dog and pony show to help solicit funds from the healthcare district and a few other places on what is part of a hospitality tourism as well as a environmental effort to change things in the valley with the Whitewater Trails project. So that was a highlight of the evening. So just wanted to share that.
All right. Anything else? Frank, can I recess, excuse me, the city council meeting, go to successor agency, so we have that done, and then come back? Okay. I would like to recess the La Quinta City Council meeting and
Till 7 o'clock.
No, actually, I've got a closed session item. That's why I'm recessing right now. Then I'm going to go to successor agency, then come back and do the closed session. We're going to do closed session at dinner.
Yeah, no, we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get this over with.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
with you. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the successor agency to the La Quinta Redevelopment Agency. Roll call, we don't need the roll call.
I will make a motion to excuse the chairperson Adolph from the successor
A second?
agency.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes. Okay, if any of the members of the public wish to address the successor agency, seeing none, we'll move on to confirmation of agenda. Any changes? No changes. Okay. No presentations. We have no written communications. I'll accept a motion for approval of the minutes of
So
April
moved.
16th.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes. There are no department reports, no business session, no study session.
Move adjournment.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes. Okay, I'm going to reconvene the city council, the regular meeting of the city council, La Quinta City Council, and announce that we are going to go into closed session. We have one item, conference with city attorney, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, C, one matter. So we are going to recess.
That's
Oh,
what
it's in there?
Yeah.